How's it going? So, parts 1 and 2 of this series have already been completed. If you haven't seen them already, I'll try to link them. This is going to be part 3 on the bipartisan report detailing the Russian influence operation in the 2016 elections, and perhaps the ongoing issues that we're facing here as we head into November. But before we do that, I have a surprise.
Eclectic method. There's no collusion, 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 no collusion. There's no collusion, 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 no obstruction. Whoa, the horror show. Whoa, I don't think so. Whoa, Mueller's probe, scum on top, and they had to be stopped. Whoa, the horror show. Whoa, I don't think so. Whoa, Mueller's probe. It was for justice now with votes. Call me the CIA or somebody. And for me, that could be a little dicey. Everybody lives in the den of thieves, but they were nasty. No loyalty, flippers, criminal acts. Hold you back. 13 angry Democrats. The media never covers that. If I say enemy of the people, called flipping, and it ought to be illegal. Crazy, our president is crazy. Crazy. Crazy, our president is crazy. A total phony. Crazy, our president is crazy. Separating the families.
I could play this whole thing. I want to play the whole thing, okay? But you can find it on YouTube, Eclectic Method. Thank you. I'm happy that I came across that. He did it back in 2018, but it's so relevant now. Love it. Let's get started. So why am I doing this? The reason why I'm doing this is because currently the administration likes to focus on what's going on in China and making the accusation that Biden is a puppet of China and that they're our biggest threat, while ignoring the fact that this man basically sits on Putin's lap. He refuses to condemn him. As the reports on Navalny's poisoning happens, he stood. I actually don't want to talk about that part yet. We'll go into that at another point. We'll intersperse some media throughout the video series. So these are going to be bite-sized videos, bite-sized for me anyway, where we just discuss some of the things, find a nice jumping-off point, and work on the next video in line. So without further ado, the committee found that the Russian government engaged in an aggressive, multifaceted effort to influence or attempt to influence the outcome of the 2016 presidential election. Who's the committee? The committee is a bipartisan committee, meaning that it's not just Democrats that are out to get Donald Trump, but also their Republican counterparts in these intelligence committees that looked at all the facts, looked at all the interviews, conducted interviews of their own, and came out with this 900 plus page volume. I wish the entirety of it was redacted, but beggars can't be choosers. So the first piece that we're going to discuss is Paul Manafort. Paul Manafort's connections to Russia and Ukraine began in approximately late 2004 with the start of his work for Oleg Deripaska and other Russian-aligned oligarchs in the Ukraine. The committee found that Deripaska conducts influence operations frequently in countries where he has a significant economic interest. This reminds me, who we talk? We're talking about Deripaska. I'm sorry, it reminded me of somebody else. The Russian government coordinates with and directs Deripaska on many of his influence operations. From approximately 2004 to 2009, Manafort implemented these influence operations on behalf of Deripaska, including a broad multi-million-dollar political influence campaign directed at numerous countries of interest to Deripaska and the Russian government. Pro-Russian Ukrainian oligarchs with deep economic ties to Russia also paid Manafort tens of millions of dollars and formed strong ties with Manafort, independent of Deripaska. So all of these oligarchs, these pro-Russian oligarchs, are funneling money into Manafort's bank accounts, and we wonder why Alexandra Chalupa had an issue with this man being part of Trump's, campaign team. If you don't know who Alexandra Chalupa is, you should look her up. She has a lot to say on this matter. Manafort hired and worked increasingly closely with a Russian national, Konstantin Kilimnik. Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer. It just straight up says Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer. So we wonder if Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer. No, it's just like Kilimnik is a Russian intelligence officer. He became an integral part of Manafort's operations in Ukraine and Russia, serving as Manafort's primary liaison to Deripaska and eventually managing Manafort's office in Kiev. Kiev is the capital of the Ukraine. Kilimnik and Manafort formed a close and lasting relationship that endured to the 2016 U.S. elections and beyond. So prior to joining the Trump campaign in March 2016 and continuing throughout his time on the campaign, Manafort directly and indirectly communicated with Kilimnik, Deripaska, and the pro-Russian oligarchs in Ukraine. He's just continuing to talk to these people, and this report will go into why, and we'll cover that in future videos. On numerous occasions, Manafort sought to secretly share internal campaign information with Kilimnik. The committee was unable to reliably determine why Manafort shared sensitive internal polling data or campaign strategy with Kilimnik, or with whom Kilimnik further shared that information. Could it be Russia? I don't know why I did that. Anyway, the committee had limited insight into Kilimnik's communications with Manafort and into Kilimnik's communications with other individuals connected to Russian influence operations, all of whom used communication security practices. This is saying that they used various chat apps with encryption so that the threads of these conversations were harder to piece together. So they talk about something on WhatsApp and then go into encrypted text messages and then call from somebody else's phone and things like that, okay? So the committee obtained some information suggesting Kilimnik may have been connected to the GRU's hack and leak operation targeting the 2016 U.S. election. This is just a summary, okay? These are just findings. We will cover in more detail how they came to these conclusions. The GRU, by the way, is one of the Russian. It's like kind of like a KGB, kind of like a CIA. It's one of the Russian organizations that specialize in pushing disinformation, attacking infrastructure, and things like that. So beginning while he was a campaign chairman and continuing until at least 2018, Manafort discussed with Kilimnik a peace plan for eastern Ukraine that benefited the Kremlin. Who's the Kremlin? The Kremlin is the capital of Russia. I saw that on Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego when I was a kid. The loot, the wallet, top grunge, da, 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 da. And by extension, who is the Kremlin? Vladimir Putin. After the election, Manafort continued to coordinate with Russian persons, particularly Kilimnik and other individuals close to Deripaska, in an effort to undertake activities on their behalf. Manafort worked with Kilimnik starting in 2016 on narratives that sought to undermine evidence that Russia interfered in the 2016 U.S. election. The committee found that Manafort's presence on the campaign and proximity to Trump created opportunities for Russian intelligence services to exert influence over and acquire confidential information on the Trump campaign. So having him there was a way in. He was a security issue, just like so many other people that we've seen that have come and gone since then. While the GRU and WikiLeaks were releasing hacked documents, the Trump campaign sought to maximize the impact of those leaks to aid Trump's electoral prospects. Staff on Trump campaign saw advance notice about WikiLeaks releases, created messaging strategies to promote and share the materials in anticipation of and following their release, and encouraged further leaks. So we ignore what happened at the beginning of this year, where we had whistleblowers, and Trump was like, "These are traitors to our country. Anybody that takes this kind of stuff is a traitor." He didn't actually say that, and I know that my Trump impression needs some tuning, but that was the gist of it. Okay, he was downing people, so calling not just the whistleblowers, but the people that were utilizing that information traitors, and yet here we are, 2016, doing the exact thing that he deflected, projected rather, onto people that were actually doing their jobs. So the Trump campaign publicly undermined the attribution of the hack and leak campaigns to Russia, and was indifferent to whether it and WikiLeaks were furthering a Russian election interference effort. They just didn't care. The committee found no evidence that campaign officials received an authoritative government notification that the hack was perpetrated by the Russian government before October 7th, 2016, when the ODNI and DHS issued a joint statement to that effect. And here's the however. The campaign was aware of the extensive media reporting and other private sector attribution of the hack to Russian actors to that point. So, we didn't receive anything from the government telling us that it was the Russians. We read that it might have been the Russians, but fake news. It couldn't have been Russians. It was Ukraine. Anyway, Trump and senior campaign officials sought to obtain advance information about WikiLeaks' planned releases through Roger Stone. At their direction, Stone took action to gain inside knowledge for the campaign and shared his purported knowledge directly with Trump and senior campaigns on multiple occasions. And again, this report goes deeper into that, and we'll cover some of that. Now we'll talk about that. Agalovs and the June 9th, 2016 Trump Tower meeting, just briefly. So the committee found that the connection between Trump and the Agalovs began in 2013 with planning for the Miss Universe Moscow pageant. The relationship with the Agalovs, which continued through the 2016 U.S. election, included business and personal communications, in-person meetings, and gifts. And it lasted quite a while. The committee found evidence suggesting that it was the intent of the campaign participants in the June 9, 2016 meeting, particularly Donald Trump Jr., to receive derogatory information that would benefit the campaign from a source known, at least by Trump Jr., to have connections with the Russian government. This is our first family. This is Prince Donnie Jr. that's intentionally undermining our institutions and intentionally working with a foreign power to get his daddy elected. And now here he is in 2020 talking shit about other people. The committee assesses that at least two participants in the June 9, 2016 meeting, Veselnitskaya and Renat Akhmetshin, has significant connections to the Russian government, including the Russian intelligence services. The connections the committee uncovered, particularly regarding Veselnitskaya, were far more extensive and concerning than what had been publicly known. Now, mind you, we're going to cover a little bit more on this in detail, okay? I know I keep saying this, but you might be sitting there going, well, why aren't we talking about it now? And that's just because we don't have time to today, okay? Patience is a virtue. Trump Tower, Moscow. Cohen kept Trump updated on the progress of the deal. While these negotiations were ongoing, Trump made positive public comments about Putin in connection with his presidential campaign. Cohen and Sater. Sater is Felix Sater. He worked for Donald Trump, worked with Michael Cohen on the whole Trump Tower Moscow stuff. He's another bit player. If we want to talk about him, we can. Anyway, they sought to leverage Trump's comments and subsequent comments about Trump by Putin to advance the deal. Excuse me. And George Papadopoulos, he wrote a book, basically stating that he's a pariah, and they focused on him, and he's innocent and all that stuff. The committee found George Papadopoulos used multiple avenues to pursue a face-to-face meeting between Trump and President Putin. Papadopoulos believed that he was operating with the approval, or at least not the explicit disapproval, of campaign leadership who he kept apprised of his efforts. Papadopoulos never successfully scheduled a meeting between Putin and Trump, but that's not for a lack of trying, right? The committee found evidence that Papadopoulos likely learned about the Russian active measures campaign as early as April 2016 from Joseph Mifsud, a Maltese academic with long-standing Russian ties, well before any public awareness of the Russian effort. The committee further found Papadopoulos communicated the information he learned from Mifsud to at least 2 separate foreign governments. The committee could not determine if Papadopoulos informed anyone on the Trump campaign of the information, though the committee finds it implausible that Papadopoulos did not do so. Then they talk about Carter Page. Carter Page also has written books and been on television and, all that good stuff. So in the summer of 2016, Page was invited to make 2 addresses in Russia, including an address during the commencement ceremonies at Moscow's new economic school. The invitation was extended because of the Russian sponsors' perception of his role in the Trump campaign. So they were inviting him simply because they thought that they could get their fingers in the pie there. Maria Butina and Alexander Torshin. If you will recall, Maria Butina was in the news back during all of this stuff. Why? So starting in 2013 and continuing over a several-year period, Maria Butina, founder of a Russian gun rights organization who attended graduate school in the United States, and Alexander Torshin, a high-ranking Russian banker, government official, and politician with Kremlin ties, established a broad network of relationships with the leaders of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, conservative political operatives, Republican government officials, and individuals connected to the Trump campaign. They took steps to establish formal communications channels to influence the U.S. government's policy towards Russia. The committee did not find that either Butina or Torshin was able to establish consistent contact with Trump campaigns or senior staff. Then we're going to go down to transition. So Russia took advantage of members of the transition team's relative inexperience in government, opposition to Obama administration policies, and Trump's desire to deepen ties with Russia to pursue unofficial channels through which Russia could conduct diplomacy. Russia was not alone in these efforts. U.S. allies and adversaries also sought inroads with the transition. The existence of a cadre of informal advisors to the transition team with varying levels of access to the president-elect and varying awareness of foreign affairs presented attractive targets for foreign influence, creating notable counterintelligence vulnerabilities. The lack of vetting of foreign interactions by transition officials left the transition open to influence and manipulation by foreign intelligence services. The transition team reportedly took actions that had the potential and sometimes the effect of interfering in the Obama administration's diplomatic efforts. And that's kind of tied to one of the reasons why General Flynn ended up being convicted of lying and things like that, because they were doing a behind the back diplomacy with Russia on sanctions from when they annexed Crimea. In mid-December, Sergei Gorkov, the head of a U.S.-sanctioned Russian bank, met with Jared Kushner and discussed diplomatic relations. Then they go into executive branch investigations and whatnot. Okay, so I'm gonna end the video here. Hopefully, this has been somewhat entertaining to you. Whether or not it's entertaining, I'm gonna continue doing this series. So please Participate, share at WIKWEKO on Twitter, indigenouspatriot.com. Thank you for watching.